for hockey fans across this country. My name's Christine Simpson, and I'm a reporter for Hockey Central at Sportsnet. You can imagine for our team, it has been very exciting times since last November's announcement, but there have been probably more questions than answers up until this point. And today, we want to at least provide some of the answers for you today. And actually, before we get the program started, I do want to acknowledge a couple of people who are here in the audience with us, beginning with the president of Rogers Media, Mr. Keith Pelly. And beside him, the Senior VP of Hockey Production for Rogers, the man who will be quarterbacking our hockey production, Mr. Gord Cutler. Now, to really get the program started, though, I want to bring up a gentleman who is the president of Sportsnet and NHL Properties for Rogers. Please welcome Mr. Scott Moore.
Thanks, Christine. Thank you all for coming out. 29 weeks from now, the puck will drop on the 2014-2015 NHL season, and it will be a season like never before because we will present hockey like never before on all Rogers platforms. It's appropriate that we're here at the CBC, where the tradition started 62 years ago with Hockey Night in Canada. We're thrilled to be working with the CBC. They've been terrific partners. We're looking forward to working with you, working in your facilities, working with your terrific people. You know, the studio, it's symbolic. It may be somewhat empty now, but in 29 weeks, it'll look a little bit more like this, a fresh face for hockey in a new season. And that's what we're here to talk about, a fresh face for how to do hockey. Canadian fans are going to get more coverage on more screens than ever before. More coverage on free television, with free over-the-air television on Saturday night on CBC and on City, as well as on Sportsnet. And a new night on Sunday night that we're very excited about, Sunday night hockey on City and hometown hockey. We're going to bring the passion for the game and our broadcasts to a different community every single Sunday. Imagine College Game Day meets Hockey Day in Canada every single Sunday night. We'll tell you a little bit more about that in a while. Wednesday nights on Sportsnet, Thursday nights on Sportsnet 360, and of course, the jewel, Hockey Night in Canada. And as well as Hockey Night in Canada and all that NHL coverage, Sportsnet will be the home of junior hockey for the next 12 years. So players like Brad Richards, who've had the thrill of hoisting both the Memorial Cup and the Stanley Cup, you'll be able to follow players like him, like Connor McDavid of the Erie Otters, right from the Memorial Cup all the way through to the Stanley Cup. Between our national deal, our junior hockey, our regional deal, we will be producing over 600 hockey telecasts next year. In order to do that, we need an all-star team. And I'm thrilled to be introducing the first line of that all-star team today. So please join me as I introduce our hosts for Rogers Hockey for next year. Starting with a gentleman that many of you are familiar with. He's known to Canadians across the country for his daily talk show, before that on Much Music, and he started his career at The Fan 590, which is now Sportsnet 590, the host of Hockey Night in Canada, George Stroumboulopoulos.
Thank you, thank you.
Georgie?
Nice to see you, bud.
Good to see you. I'm not really a hugger.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Hi.
The biggest question everybody wants to know, what will you be wearing?
What will I be wearing? Black. I don't know. You got to dress for the set. That's the thing. You dress for the set. I haven't figured that out yet. This has all happened so quickly. I don't know yet. Gord and I have been talking about it. There'll be very few bathing suits. That's what we can agree on. Everything else we don't know. Yeah.
There's a great quote in our press release from your friend Jeff Merrick. It said that when you guys started together at The Fan, you used to sit in the producer's room and talk about one day working together on hockey. So what does this day feel like?
That's exactly true. It feels very strange. And the fact that he's about to come out, it makes it even better. And we had that conversation. We agreed with each other that we needed to go away with Jeff and Bob, our friend Bob, that we had to go away in 20 years we could be ready to do something like this. And you and I are having this conversation 19 and a half years later. So it took 20 years to get to this place. But I mean, to join a team with Ron and Don, I grew up watching Ron and Don. These guys are icons. And a guy who's a host, Ron's the greatest host I've ever seen. So to be in on the same team as him is amazing. Millard's great. Of course, Cherry's the greatest at what he does.
Just ask him.
Yeah, well, that you said that, not me. I love it. And that it's with Merrick. I mean, what a dream, right? This is hockey. I get to see you again. And I've known Keith since I was 26 years old when I had super long hair, when I first started working with him on Off the Record. So I'm excited to be a part of the family again.
When did the passion for hockey start for you?
I was probably 5 years old. It was right in that key age. The Habs were good. And then that quickly went away, but they were good at that time. And I remember watching, you know what it was, being an immigrant son, Eastern Europeans, there was this wave of players from Eastern Europe that were playing in the National Hockey League. And I remember even guys, not even just Eastern Europe, but Swedish players were coming, Mats Naslund, Finns were coming, and I remember thinking, oh yeah, okay, I get this. I recognized my family's names on the back of these jerseys. So that was like 5 years old, and I've been sort of out of my mind about it since.
Well, we're looking forward to having George's passion on Saturday nights. George, welcome to the team.
Thank you, man. Good to see you, Scott. Thank you. Thank you.
Next, a gentleman that I was fortunate enough to hire when I was here at the CBC to come join us at Hockey Night in Canada Radio. He came over to join us at Sportsnet, has been a host of Hockey Central, a good friend of George Stroumboulopoulos. He will be hosting Friday Night Hockey, our junior hockey coverage. He'll be hosting Thursday Night Hockey on Sportsnet 360, as well as 2 hours of pregame coverage every Saturday and every Sunday. Please welcome Jeff Merrick.
On after George?
Yes, and in
after the Who at Woodstock, why don't you?
And in the hair theme, you had spiky hair when I first met you.
No, I know. This is my young Republican look. It's been mandated by Sportsnet.
When you and George were talking in the producer's room 20 years ago, did you imagine that you'd be standing on a stage here at the CBC?
My heart always said yes, and my head said not a chance. We were two little chimps. And George, we started in 94 or 95 at the Fan, and we started like the lowest men on the totem pole in promotions, right? So we're handing out tickets on the street, get people to listen to the radio station. George was an overnight board op. I was a call screener for the Spider Jones show. We have like every other kid who's in broadcast college right now, the wild fantasy. What are we going to do 10 years from now, 5 years, 20 years from now? And that was, I guess that was always the dream, and we wanted it, but I don't think we ever really believed it.
People don't know about Jeff is that when I first met him, I was also working as an usher at a movie theater, but Jeff was a gravedigger, and the first person he ever buried was Harold Ballard, which is exactly true, former Leaf owner. So
April 20th,
we bonded over some stuff on hockey back in those really early days.
There were a number of fans who wanted to bury him with you.
Well, everyone complained about it, but only one person did something about it, Scott. That's kind of the way I like to position it.
Well, welcome to the team, Jeff.
Thanks, boss.
Okay.
And I'll wear whatever you want, George.
Okay, great. Next, I'd like to introduce a day oneer at Sportsnet. He is a recent inductee into the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. He's been hosting hockey coverage on Sportsnet since 1998. He will be the host of Wednesday Night Hockey on Sportsnet, as well as his radio show, Hockey Central at noon. Please welcome Darren Millard.
We get to hug?
We are not hugging.
Oh.
I only hug George. It's just like a show business thing. Darren, congratulations. Thrilled to have you on the team. You've been at Sportsnet since day one. What changes have you seen?
15 years, I get a promotion. So once every 15 years.
Once every 15 years. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, well, trade deadline day is the biggest one that you see from back when we just basically went on during our newscast and announced all the trades to this year with 5 different sets and reporters everywhere and probably 40 commentators. It's a full-fledged event and 2 days of massive media coverage. So that would probably be the biggest difference that I can go back to day one to now.
What ignited your first hockey passion? You're a goalie.
I'm a goalie.
So it means you're a little crazy.
Yeah.
What ignited your first hockey passion?
My grandma gave me some Bobby Clark pajamas. My brother got Guy Lafleur out of a twin, Guy Lafleur pajamas. So that was the rivalry, Montreal and Philadelphia. And then we played hockey at the East End Community Center when I was 7 years old. And they said, "Who wants to play goal next?" And I put up my hand, and my dad put it down, and my other one went up, and that was it. Sold on it. Still play today. As I say, the kids that get all this pressure to succeed in hockey, and 95% of them all end up in the same rinks that we all play in at 10 o'clock at night, and that's the most important message that I like to tell kids, because it's not about making it to the National Hockey League, it's about your passion for it, and I like to play, I like to watch it. It's all part of the same package.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Great. A few years ago, when I first joined the CBC, I was told if you wanted to make an event look big, put Ron MacLean on it. I've had the distinct pleasure of doing 4 hockey days in Canada with Ron MacLean. Nobody connects with communities across this country. Nobody is seen to be hockey in this country like Ron MacLean. We're thrilled to have him as our host of Hometown Hockey on Sunday nights, launching a whole new night for us. Please welcome Ron MacLean.
Right. Thank you, Scott. Boys. George, you're looking good. Now, don't screw this up. It's a big show.
So when we first talked about Sundays, you said that you were looking at, you've got a new book that you're working on. It's called...
Curse McClellan Day, it's called, I think, along the lines of Ron's Canada. It's about stories, people of influence that we've met in our travels in small towns across the country. So, you know, Scott, I will say one thing. We're all figuring this out a little bit on the fly, as you can well imagine. And I have to admit, when Scott said we're creating a national game, it's a great new concept. It's on Pun Day, I thought he said. And so I agreed to do it. It's Sunday. I find out it's Sunday. No, I'm kidding, of course. And that, I think, is going to be, it's just going to be a wonderful show. It's a wonderful night. Battle of the Blades was a show where we made it kind of a family viewing. It combined the men and the women. I think, you know, we've seen what girls hockey's doing right now. I just think it's going to be a tremendous idea to go out into the communities and bring the show to the Rink Rat, the biggest show on earth. So it's going to be great.
Now, I was hoping that your wife, Carrie, would be here because I was going to apologize to her for ruining your entire weekend,
Right.
because we've got you working Saturday and Sunday. You'll continue with Coach's Corner with Don Cherry. What's the craziest thing Don ever made you do on a Saturday night?
You know, we have to have about 22 coffees. Ironically, now I'm making a living with it. Probably the biggest challenge for me over 28 years has been, and I was kidding, you know, he's wired, always wired, and now we're wireless, haha. But he loves coffee before we go on, as you all know, and it's got to be black, and we got about 200 coffees before we do the Coach's Corner. So that's the craziest thing in a way, because you're so jittery by the time you do it. It's like you're over the top on Red Bull, but it's been a good ride, and I'm glad it's continuing. I'm looking forward to that too. 29th year coming up.
Well, thank you very much. We're looking forward to Sunday. All these folks are going to be available for questions. So there you have it. Our team. I think a hockey team other than goalie should have 5. Yeah. So there's supposed to be a music cue.
There we go. That feels better.
Ladies and gentlemen, Don Cherry.
You don't have a seat for me, that's right.
It's right behind you. Right behind you. It's a throne.
You got to be interviewed
Let
first.
me tell you about the first time. Usually you're back again, second time. Usually I get rid of the bosses, they're gone forever. And you come back. Very first time I met him, I was doing makeup. There's no kidding. I'm looking straight ahead. And he comes in, he thought he was funny, and I'm looking straight ahead. He says, hi, I'm Scott Moore. I'm your boss. You want your pig slipped now or later? I looked at it as a lot of guys have tried. A week later, he says, this Don Cherry's a thoroughbred. We're going to run him till he dies, and then we're going to shoot him. So I knew I was off on the wrong foot right off the bat. But I'm still here. Glad to have you back in the big time.
Great. Thank you. I did say to Don when I came to CBC, I was living in a condo about 2 blocks away. So the famous 7-second delay would be changed to a 7-minute delay, because that's how long it would take me to run from my condo to the studio to take him off the air. But that's never been necessary.
Well, I wouldn't have paid any attention to you anyhow, so it doesn't make any difference. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. Yeah. I don't know how long I'm going to last this year either. Anyhow, can't touch me this time.
Well, we are thrilled to have you back.
You.
And continuing a 30-year tradition. Ladies and gentlemen, the faces of hockey on Rogers.
Okay.
Happy to take questions. Miss Christine, you're going to quarterback that?
Absolutely. Yeah, if anybody out there has any questions for any of our team here on the stage, we do have some handheld microphones, though, so if you could just sort of put your hand up, and we will bring a microphone to you.
Yeah.
With this cast, there have to be some questions. Who's going to start us off?
Hi, I'm Michael Colbert from Media in Canada. Where is Coach's Corner going to be airing? Will it be on CBC or on all the channels across the platform?
Well, the beauty of the way we're doing Saturday night is that it will be national on all our platforms. So the Leaf game may be national on CBC, Habs game on Sportsnet, the Jets game on City TV, and the intermissions will all come from this studio. So nationally, it will air on each of those. You may see it on a slight delay. So the good news is you can watch Ron and Don up to 5 times every Saturday night if you didn't catch it the first time.
Over here.
Question for George. Can you be an unbiased host and still such a huge Habs fan?
Well, the good news about being a hockey fan, and certainly in Canada, is that nobody hates on your own team more than a fan. So, of course, that's the thing. Right? I can be a fan of hockey and all the teams, but in my heart, I grew up as a Habs fan, but this is different. This is the game. It's the same way you do an interview, and you have your own personal bias, but you try to eliminate that from that and have an honest conversation. It's what I do all the time. When you interview a politician, you try to approach it. It's important to have point of view, but not to have bias, and I think those are very different realities, and you can do the same thing in this context as well. We all grew up fans of something, watching sports, fans of some team, whatever, you know, and you're able to look. I mean, he's a Bruins fan, but he loves the Leafs. Sure, you can like all this. You can kind of grow around it, so it should be easy. Plus, nobody breaks my heart more than the Habs. I'll be thankful for the distance.
Over here. In the middle here.
I had a question. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry. It's Cassandra Sklarski, Canadian Press. Scott, this is for you, and then I have a question for George. First of all, just to clarify, the Hockey Night in Canada airings, are those different, Coach's Corner segments that you referred to earlier that we'll be seeing on Saturday nights, up to 5 different ones?
First period segment will run in the first period of all the games.
Oh.
It's not dissimilar to what Ron and Don do right now. Do you want to speak to it a bit?
We time shift. Wherever the first game, first period ends, we go. And that's always been a bit of a complication. I would get Don to explain it, but so we've always time shifted. So it's a live to the first time we get an end of a period, we go. And whatever show is first to the end of the first, Coach's Corner takes place, and then we time shift it into the other telecasts.
It's repeated for the
That's
other
right.
telecasts. Okay.
Repeated's a good word.
And then, George, I'm just wondering, can you take us back to when and how and where you were approached about taking over this gig, and what went through your mind? What were you thinking?
It all started in the new year, and the conversation was very simple. It was, hey, do you want to be a part of the hockey package? And I said, yeah, let's figure out what you got. It was important to me that Ron and Don were a part of it. Everybody agreed with that. It wasn't, and that's, everybody in the country wants that. But I just said, yeah, let me know what your reality is, and then come back to me. And I knew that it was the right time after 10 seasons of this show to change it up. So I was just looking at a couple options, and they said, want to be a part of this? I went, of course. And that's really how it happened. But it's only really kicked into gear in the last little while.
Ron, you started this, what were you, 25 years old or something when you became host of Hockey Night in Canada?
26, Bill.
26.
Right. Same age Dave Hodge was.
Well,
so
interesting.
Yeah.
But, you know, Canada had this tradition, Ward Cornell, Dave Hodge yourself. But you've seen all the television's gone through such a revolution. Mm-hmm. Can you put in perspective a bit what it's been like for you to sort of start so young as host of such an iconic show, and then today to see this day and how it's all evolving?
You know, obviously we saw with the Olympic app during Sochi, that's probably the biggest change. And even Coach's Corner, Don, you know, you can now PVR it if you wanted to. We don't recommend it, I don't believe, but you know, that the biggest change is Twitterverse, things like that, social media. Everybody's you know, yay or nay on everything, but by and large, Bill, it doesn't change. I mean, honestly, it's like Guy Lawrence. I'm not trying to suck up to Guy Lawrence, the new guy in charge of Rogers, but he's got this clean desk policy that at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, if anybody leaves anything on their desk, it goes in the incinerator, because he doesn't want anybody to own the desk. They just own the task. They just own the idea of coming to work and delivering on something. And that's always the way the show. Nobody owns the desk.
Sadly, I left your contract on my desk last night.
Yes. So it's really neat.
What is that again? He wants you to burn?
You don't own a desk. You come into work, you can sit and you work anywhere, but you don't actually get
You don't own a desk?
No, you don't. You don't own a desk. You just don't. Yeah. That's probably the thing I've noticed, is that now that's the new world we're in, is that it belongs to everybody. And that's why I think Sunday night's going to be a great idea.
And just to follow, did you consider other options at this juncture?
Not at all. I was really excited. Look, Bill, 28 years. on the tiller. And Don and I are continuing what's been a fun partnership, great relationship. So that's good. And the Sunday night thing, I think, is just a great idea. As I said to you, in all sincerity, Hockey Day in Canada, I worried when we first started that concept that we would gag after a couple of years, but it never feels like too much, because it really is what we are. So I think Sunday night's going to be just a great show, and I'm excited for that challenge. Really, I was excited for it.
And a question just over here.
Yes, I just had two quick questions for George. Firstly, with hosting the Hockey Night in Canada shows, will you also be giving your hockey opinions during the Hockey Night in Canada?
Well, I don't know. I hope not. It depends on how the whole thing plays out, right? We're going to assemble the team. As you can see, a big part of this is who sits at that desk, and then we all fill our different roles at that time. I didn't play the game at a level of a champion, so I wouldn't offer the advice of a guy who played the level of champion. He's played hockey with me. I couldn't even make a minor league team. But no, I mean, look, my job is going to be to facilitate the conversation and connect stories to people at home, to try to build on the tradition that Ron has done so beautifully, but also to interview, which is what I do. And I think that I can fill all the role without having to provide too much analysis. But I'm a hockey fan, so I will host the show like a hockey fan hosts the program.
Secondly, we touched a little bit on what you will be wearing. Kind of got the punk look going on the other shows. Will you be wearing more suits and ties, or will you be trying to rival that?
Okay, the big news here is the announcement of a new host of Hockey Night in Canada. Currently, Hockey Night in Canada is hosted by Rod MacLean. But the new host going forward will be CBC talk show host George Stroumboulopoulos. He'll replace Rod MacLean. Stroumboulopoulos paid a small tribute to MacLean there, saying Ron's the greatest host he had ever seen. Says he's excited to be part of the team. He is leaving the CBC. His talk show is now canceled. Rod MacLean, who's hosted Hockey Night in Canada for 28 years, when he came on stage, Rod MacLean's advice to George was, don't screw this up. It's a big show. MacLean is moving to host hometown hockey Sunday nights, and of course, he'll stay with Coach's Corner with Don Cherry. He says it's been a good ride, and he says he is excited for the challenge of the Sunday night show.